Hello everyone, this is FIDE Master Victor Neustroyev, and thank you for coming to our today's mastermind, where I'm going to explain how and when to use tactics in Endgame. Okay, please let me know if the video and audio quality is good. I'm checking all platforms, including our website, chesslance.com. By the way, I kindly ask you to tell me what rating do you have. It can be either a FIDE rating, USCF, any national rating, or just chess.com rating. Okay, and I'm streaming this mastermind. It will be recorded, so everyone can find it either on Twitch or on the chessworld.com YouTube channel or on my YouTube channel Tricks of Chess. Okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Well, we have not beginners, not complete beginners, but some beginners who just started playing chess, and we also have some strong players. So, for example, John is 1900 USCF, which is maybe 1850 or 1800 FIDE, which is good at the same time. Okay, fine. Who else? Well, and if there is anybody watching this stream on Twitch, could you please tell me if everything is working? Because it doesn't show me. Oh, now I see it's working. Perfect. Yeah, okay, it started already. Guys, so let's talk about this position. Well, first of all, when we decide to whether to look for tactics or instead play positionally, we should analyze the position, and we should recognize either tactical or positional motives. However, when we play the end game, usually it's more about positional play, a long plan which requires calculation, but at the same time, because of just a few pieces left on the board, there is nothing, no tactical strikes that we can apply, and that's why we mainly have to demonstrate our in-game technique or to play positionally. And the most common plans are to bring the king to the center, to create a passed pawn, to support this passed pawn from behind, try to promote it, or to force the enemy rook or the enemy piece to tie down to that pawn, so this rook gets distracted and we can do something else on the other flank. But sometimes if you see that there are some preconditions, it can be some tactical motives that you are able to recognize, or maybe the king is in a danger. well, even in the end game, sometimes the king can be in a danger, and when it comes to the attack of the king, there is a lot of tactics always. Doesn't really matter whether it's middle game or the end game. Well, what about this position? Looks like the enemy king on c8 isn't weak. I mean, isn't under attack. We can of course check it, but it's not under attack. One more thing, we are a pawn up in this position, and what I like is that we have an outside pass pawn on the h file, which we can potentially promote. If you are a positional player, you are most likely to continue here with such move like rook takes e8, rook takes e8, maybe h5. They attack the bishop, or the bishop attacks the rook. This rook goes back, and then he either plays rook e5 to attack on g5 because f4 doesn't work, there is a pin, or they play rook e2 immediately, trying to pressure on f2. Well, I think rook e5 is actually a better move. So it's not clear that white plays for a win in this position. That's why I want you to suggest something else. Okay, who knows how to play here, and maybe instead of playing a slow and strategic move, you will find tactics. And if possible, first I want you to determine these tactical motives that you should recognize, and because of them suggest the move. So white to move, what would you do? I'm looking at your comments on several platforms, including our Chesslands website, Twitch, and my YouTube channel, Tricks of Chess. Okay, so what are your suggestions? John suggests bishop a3 with bishop f4 coming. Well, interesting idea. Let's make these moves on the board and check whether it works. Bishop h3. Well, we attack the king. If the king goes there, then after bishop f4, it is in a trouble. The only way to play here is to block with something, but when they block with something, they blunder the rook on e8. So bishop takes, rook takes, and then the rook is hanging. But that happens only in case if here the king goes there. If the king goes there, and we play bishop f4, well, they can continue with king b6, for example, and I'm sure that black is happy with their position. So bishop h3 is something that we should keep in mind, but this is definitely not the best option. Okay, what else do we have? Well, there are several suggestions with rook e7 move. We will check this move. The rook a5 is another option. Interesting, but what if they just play bishop b6? Go there. Then what? Well, wait, what are we talking about? Rook a5, it's a blunder of the rook on e1 with a check. So no, definitely not rook a5. So what else to analyze? No more moves, so it's only rook e7. Well, why rook e7 is possible? Why we should analyze this move? To be honest, it's definitely the best option. And we may analyze this move because we understand that if one of his pieces takes our rook, we create a pass pawn on e7, and at the same time we have the passed pawn on the h file. And if we combine both these ideas, then maybe something will work. However, you shouldn't rely on your you shouldn't rely if you think that it works, or well, you should rely on your calculation only. What to calculate? Well, they can take with the bishop, they can take with the rook. For example, bishop takes, then we take with the pawn, attacking the rook. Well, if rook goes to d7, bishop h3 works pretty well. We attack the rook, and so at least we gain the exchange, getting a winning position. If they continue with this move, it's a bit more complicated, but probably in such a case we may take the second pawn, and only after that continue advancing our h-pawn. Okay, let me show you. So let's first start with rook e7. Pawn takes e7, rook has to stay on e8. This time, well, you can play rook a5, of course, they take, but I don't like it. You can continue with h5. And if they take, bishop takes, rook takes, and then you take on b4, having a pass pawn on h5. And well, this is a winning position. You are a pawn up, this is a passed pawn, it cannot be attacked right away. For example, if they let's say play this move, you can continue with g4, or you can continue with bishop f3. What is better? Well, probably bishop f3. Bring the rook there, play h6. Bishop f3 is better because it prevents rook h5 in future when we push the pawn to h6. So this position is winning. We simplified, we got a passed pawn, that should be fine. But of course, here we should definitely analyze what if they accept a sacrifice and instead of exchanging the rooks, capture with their bishop. Pawn takes. Well, this move we discussed is a mistake because of that. And this we take, then rook b4, the bishop is hanging. And who can tell me how exactly to win in this position? Because if you exchange the rooks here, you may end in a draw because of the bishops of the opposite color. How to play here? Okay, no suggestions yet. H5. H5, and then to get the pawn to h7. h5 followed by bishop f6. Yes. So h5, h6, bishop f6, h7, h8. Something like that. For example, this, that, h6. And then this move, and then we... well, no, we cannot play bishop f6. So let's first of all wait for black's move. Now, let's say they just play some random move. And if so, we can continue with h7. And after that, we can continue with this, threatening to promote. This is how it works. Okay, h6, and then, yes, bishop, then h7, and rook goes there. Or bishop f6, rook h6, and then the rook goes there. So this is a winning position. Let's go back. So rook d7 doesn't deserve our attention. Let's talk about a rook d6 move. How to play then? Well, it looks attractive to take the pawn, right? And if, for example, they continue with a natural move bishop c6, what would you do? Who knows? So we are down the exchange. Our bishops are quite powerful. And if we decide to play this move, they are most likely to block with the bishop there. I also want you to understand the black's plan. They are going to play f6 and then capture on e7. So playing bishop f4, John suggests this move. Okay, bishop f4. And if this move is played, they are, well, they continue with what? Well, if they move the rook back, it's of course a checkmate there. And if rook e6, it's probably bishop h3. So they play this move, and after that they will play that. So if you take on e6, I think black is happy because they can take with their rook. And well, white is better, but I'm not sure if white is winning here. Black also has some counterplay with pawn promotion. So h5, d4, here, bishop there to stop it. Rook comes there. Maybe this move. h7. This, threatening a mate. So not everything is clear. Oh, wait. What am I saying? Then this move. And it's not a winning move, actually. No, it is a winning move. It is a winning move. So that was a mistake. Instead what? Oh, wait a sec. In this position, we'd better play this move, threatening the mate. And if bishop d2, for example, then rook comes to a6. And this is where white is in the trouble already. So bishop f4 doesn't seem to be a winning move, even if you gain the exchange back. After bishop c6, you should play something else. What are other suggestions? Let me check. No suggestions here. Nothing on Twitch. Okay. So the best move, I think, is to play h5. And if f6 is played, then bishop h3. Because if this time they block, well, if they block with the rook, we first take the pawn and then take advantage of the pin. So if they block with the bishop, we continue with bishop f4. And this time, if the rook moves, it's a mate. So if they take, we take, they move there. And this position is still winning because we are still 2 pawns up in this opposite color bishop endgame. So, for example, rook b6. And then advance this pawn. Every time they take it, we continue with rook b8, threatening to promote. something like that. If after bishop f4 they continue with king c7, then just bishop g2, rook e7, and take on d5. And this rook is pinned, so you can take it later, but after you capture on c4, it's obvious that the position is winning. So here you just take advantage of the pin. Okay, bishop c6, we continue with h5. This is the best option with the intention of playing this and also combine these two ideas. Okay, in the game it was played that. Now what? Do you recognize any tactical motives that you can take advantage of right away? Who can tell me? Well, bishop f4 now, what's the purpose? Bishop f4 now to continue with bishop h3. Well, bishop f4, rook takes there, bishop h3, rook blocks. Seems to be somewhat okay. So, yes, John is correct here. The best option is to continue with rook takes b7. King takes b7 and bishop d5. We play with two bishops versus two rooks, but the number of pawns allows us to win. So king moves, bishop takes, the rook is hanging. Of course, king d7 to secure the rook. And now you can just take and promote your pawn. There is no need to capture on c4. Just promote the pawn. Rook a5, f4. Rook b5, who cares? h6. And after they take, just h7 and you promote. Well, of course, they can stop it. They can stop the h-pawn by playing something else, maybe by playing this move, rook a8. So, for example, h5, rook a8, h6, and king f7. What do you think you should do here? Well, the answer is obvious. This time he cannot stop two pawns with the king. That's why he uses both of his pieces. And you simply play this move and bring the king to the place of action. So their only moves are playing with the rook and playing with the king. So king, well, let's say this move. You continue with that. And if they take, you just play h7, because the king cannot stop both pawns simultaneously. If this move, you promote to e8. So this move, well, the rook b8 doesn't make sense, but maybe this move works. Let's check. In such a case, here you continue with king f2 and bring the king closer. And then play this. So, for example, rook b8. Rook b8, you play g4, you play there, then there, then there, or maybe you instead take the pawn. So this position is completely winning. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back to our original position. So the main move here was rook e7, and this tactical option was possible because we could create a supported passed pawn on e7 and also take advantage of the distant passed pawn on the h file. Because we are able to recognize these tactical motives, we should be looking for tactics even in this endgame. So there should be always preconditions to apply a tactical strike. Even if you see that some preconditions already exist, but you don't know how to take advantage of them, I mean, you don't know, you calculate the line, but it doesn't work for some reason, then you may prepare this tactical strike and improve your position to make the combination work. Okay, and the second time we applied a tactical strike because their position is ruined after we take the d5 pawn and we are taking these two pawns. So rook b7, and that was a fork. So we actually didn't sacrifice anything because we got a full compensation for the exchange. Two pawns, the d5 and the f7 one. Okay, the second example, please take a look at this position. Well, it's white to move. If you were white, what would be your candidate moves in this position? So I want you to list 4 different candidate moves. So I'm looking at your candidate moves here. Okay, knight takes h3 is suggested by Niels. Well, it's a possible candidate move. I want you to suggest 3 more. 3 more. So knight h3 is of course attractive, and actually this is what was played in the game. It was Alexander Bilavsky played with white pieces, a strong Soviet and Russian grandmaster. If I'm not mistaken, once he was maybe not once, he was a champion of Russia several times, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, Peter suggests knight e4, knight e4, okay, knight e4, knight h3 and bishop c4. Well, interesting. Knight e4 is an interesting move. However, I'm not 100% sure that this is what you should do. Okay, bishop c4, another move. Well, okay, let me tell you what I think. If I were white in this position, I would definitely analyze this option. But at the same time, I would understand that with this move, I put my knight out of the place of action, too far from the place of action, which is likely to be somewhere here. So this is the place of action. And by playing this move, I move my knight too far. That's why instead I would consider such move like that. This can be another option. I keep my knight on f2, but may take on h3 with the king, which I also won't play because, well, I know that in the end game the king should participate and stay closer to the center to be able to reach both flanks quickly. So g4 is a possible candidate move. Another move is b takes a4 actually, and after they take, you can continue with bishop c4 to prevent any counterplay from them. And then knight h3 maybe. King e4 seems to be a better move. The king is closer to the queen side. But let's talk about knight h3. This move was played in the game, and this is where black realized that then there is a tactical motive. The knight is too far from the place of action. Black also has pawns which are quite far advanced. And I want you to suggest a tactical strike for black in this position. Okay, so what do you think black can do now? Black played a really genius move here. Well, I think if you played a serious game, you would find it yourself too. But not everything is so clear. So, what are your suggestions? How do we take advantage of the knight being too far? Okay, Daniel suggests. Okay, who else? Oh, guys, if you just joined my stream, we are talking about tactics and in Endgame, and I'm explaining why tactics is also possible in Endgame. So I'm talking about the preconditions, some factors or some tactical motives that you should recognize first to be able to apply them, to be able to apply a tactical strike even if there are just a few pieces on the board and no queens. Okay, so it is c4 suggested by Daniel. It's rook h8 suggested by John. Another John suggests to take on b3 and then play rook a3. Well, and rook d8. Well, I don't see the point of rook d8. I think they can just bring the king closer. That's not a big issue. So this is the move that we won't analyze, but we will analyze a takes b3. A takes b3, then you said rook a2, bishop c4, and no, rook a2, bishop. I don't think they need to play bishop c4. They can continue with knight f2. So, and then what? If you attack, they play this, and I don't see how black can benefit of this action. And well, if you say this, that, and with the intention of taking there, this time the knight is very close to cover the b2 square in case if you decide to sacrifice your rook for the bishop and advance the b pawn. So that is not a good move. Rook h8. Rook h8 was interesting option. And if rook h8 is played, then, well, what to expect? Well, probably this move, and after rook takes h2, b takes a4 and a5, a6, so this pawn will be quite dangerous on a6. Another move, well, that's it actually. c4 is the only option. Let's analyze c4, which is actually the best idea. Well, bishop takes c4, of course. If pawn takes on c4, then we continue with this move, threatening to promote. For example, king e3, then a3, and then b3, and then a2. That's why after rook b8, it's better for white to continue with this move, b3. Now what black is threatening to take, then play this move and trap the bishop. That's why, and if they take, it's actually a serious problem, right? So that's why after b3, a3, but rook e8 to go there. King f2, rook h8, king g2, and with rook e8, black can make a draw at least in this position. So this is the idea of c4. However, after bishop c4, it's not clear how exactly black takes advantage of this sacrifice. But there is an option, rook c8, and now the idea is simple. For example, knight f2, rook takes, pawn takes, b3. The intention is to take and promote on a1. That's why they have to take. But, well, if a takes b3, it's knight d3, stopping the pawn. However, with a3, the pawn cannot be stopped. The only square that knight should occupy to protect on e1 is c2, but the knight cannot reach c2 quickly. That's why the bishop has to move. Then a3, and this situation becomes really dangerous. So imagine this rook coming through the c file and taking the pawn on a2, and then there is a protected pass pawn on a3. In the game, white made a kind of inaccuracy. They played king e3 in this position. This move didn't lose the game, but was inaccuracy. Instead of that, it was better to continue with knight f2. And after this, there. And after that, it's just knight d1 and the rook is trapped. So you see, if white takes, the pawn is promoted. But if knight d1, the rook is trapped. So here probably we have white has to bring then the king back to c2, and only after that capture the rook, because capturing the rook right now means the pawn is promoted. Well, you may say, what about that? And then b3. No, white is fine with this move. Knight c3. And if b2, this square is also under their control. So knight f2 was the best option, after which the sacrifice won't work. But black won't sacrifice. Black would just continue improving their position and maybe would bring their king instead. The move that was played was king e3, rook c1, knight goes to f4, rook a1. So this pawn is lost, but at the same time, white wants to capture the b4 pawn. Rook h2. a2 is a deadly threat. If the knight is sacrificed for the pawn, then it's a winning position for black. That's why bishop a2. Here, black decided to play rook h3. Another option for them was to play this move. And for example, if king d2, rook goes there, knight c2, rook b1, and that is likely to be a draw. So the pawn is captured, but with two minor pieces, white is able to blockade the f pawns, and that should be a draw. Black is playing for a win, that's why rook h3. With the idea to get this king closer to the king side and at the same time further from the queen side. King f2. Now what? How would you proceed for black in this position? Okay, I'm looking at your comments. So looks like black is stuck, but there is no tactical strike that wins here. The pawn cannot be promoted. The knight is guarding it on a2. Bring the king to the attack. Rook h2 was suggested by John, but what's the point of rook h2? The rook was already there, so at least king e3. So bring the king to the attack, but how exactly to bring the king? f5, king g6. Well, thank you, Niels. f5 is a good move, but not with the idea of playing king g6. f5 is played in order to play f4. King a2, knight a2, I mean, f4, taking advantage of the pin. Well, it could make sense to continue here with king g2. You may say instead of this move, it could make sense to continue with king g2. Now f4 is too slow. But after rook h6 or rook h8, the rook goes there and white is still in trouble. For example, if this move, it's already rook b8. And if it's a knight move, rook goes to d8. Okay, f5, then f4. Pawn takes, rook takes b3, and there is one extra pawn already. Bishop c4. Rook to h3. Bishop f1, check, bishop g2. So looks like it's fine. And then why black cannot improve their position, so the only thing they can do is to bring the king. And the main task of the king is to capture the pawn on f4. If that happens with two passed pawns, black is likely to succeed. King g3, rook h5. Bishop f1. Rook c5, trying to attack the knight and to promote. So rook comes to the c5 because now bishop c4 is not possible. Bishop d3. Rook d5. And this is where they made the most critical mistake. What do you think white should do in this position to not lose the game? Who knows? So what are your suggestions? How white should play in this position in order to draw the game? Rook takes bishop. No, it's white to move. Well, if it was black to move, it's obvious. It's white to move, and I want you to find the best move for white. Well, I don't want to flip the board here, so white's bishop is under attack. Just let's find where would you move it. Something like that is a blunder, of course. At least this move can be played, but even this is good enough. The pawn is promoted. So knight b4 doesn't make sense. Instead, it should be a bishop retreat. But where exactly? Okay. Looks like you don't have any suggestions, which is... well, it's a pity. But okay. Okay, fine. Let me explain. Well, bishop c4. Thank you for bishop c4, but this is a wrong move. Let's decide why. It's just this move. No, not this move. Just it's this move, this. And if bishop goes there, this is a check. If bishop goes somewhere else, for example, there, Then you may continue with king f5 and capture this pawn. King f5, check, king e4. And then king comes closer. Okay, so in the game it was played bishop a6, which is quite similar to bishop c4. Rook d2, bishop comes to c4, and rook d4. And after this, bishop retreats to b3, it's definitely a check. After this, bishop retreats to e2, it's king f5. And then the king comes there, and this pawn is captured after king e3, and rook 2 takes on f4. And with two pawns on the f and the a file, black, of course, wins. However, the best move was this. With this move, they, of course, would sacrifice their knight for a pawn, but then white would be able to build a fortress. Here, black cannot win. So it's a theoretically drawing position, which white didn't understand, and that's why they played bishop a6, because they considered that in this case, without the exchange, they are likely to lose the game. However, that could be a draw if white then plays properly. But let's go back to the very beginning of the game. So here, white played knight h3, and a tactical strike appeared because of two preconditions. First, these far advanced passed pawns. Second, because the knight is too far from the place of action and the rook may become quite active in case if the files are open. Do you have any questions regarding this position? And actually, the main question is whether you understand when to play positionally, when to create passed pawns, improve your king, activate pieces, and when to look for tactical strikes in endgames. Do you see the difference? When to play positional, when to play tactically. Okay, so while you are trying to understand the difference, let me remind you. So let me remind you that at chesslance.com we offer free classes. Well, actually, if you want, you can download even my tips for self-studying chess. So enter your name, email, and click download my free PDF. Okay, here, if you want to book a free chess lesson, you go to the main page, click schedule your free chess lesson, then choose the coach that you would like to take a lesson from. For example, let it be FIDE Master Nikolai Yordanov. Then click the date, which works pretty well. It's a local time zone, so my current time zone is actually Asia, Almaty. This is my time zone, but usually it's defined automatically according to your time settings in your system. Then you click, for example, this time, enter your name, last name, and email. We don't charge any money, but $2 will be frozen on your bank account for a few days. It's just to confirm that you really want to participate and that you are very serious about learning chess. Well, these $2 will be released in 2 days. Even if you schedule the class in a week, this amount will be released in 2 days. Okay, if you're looking for, well, let me send you the link actually. Let me send you the link here. And if you are looking for a 1 hour class, you can click book your lesson. Again, you choose the coach. For example, let it be who? International Master Boraliub Zlatanovic. So then maybe if you don't want these days, then you can skip. So for example, this week he participates in the tournament, but the week after he has a lot of availability. Then you choose the time that works well for you, enter your name, last name, email, and proceed to payment. Well, you can also add your date of birth. For example, this is what we ask for kids. Well, if you are, let's say, over 18, you may just ignore it. Or you may enter as it is. Okay, fine. I think it's clear how to book a class. Let me send you the link. Now, let's talk about this position. So, is everything clear? Okay, I hope it is. Oh, not really. Okay. Okay, so Daniel, let me explain one more time. When to look for tactics. When you see that there are tactical motives that you can take advantage of. For example, in this position, you have a passed pawn on the H file. You may also get this pawn as a passed pawn in case if there is an exchange on E7. So because of these two ideas, you may analyze this move. However, you need to calculate it properly. If, for example, there was no pawn on F6, let's say there was the enemy pawn on F6 and the bishop was somewhere else, then you would play positionally. Or if there was no pawn on the H file, let's say this pawn was on C2 instead, then you would have to play positionally. Exchange pieces, activate your passive pieces, improve your king's position, and so on. So always try to look for your tactical opportunities, but to realize that tactical opportunities exist in this position, you should determine these motives. For example, if they played king e4, there is no motives for you to take advantage of. For example, c4, bishop c4, a3, knight d3, and the rook cannot enter. For example, check, king f3, the rook cannot enter. And the b4 is the weakness. This is a winning position for white. However, the knight moved to the edge. Now the knight is not participating in the game for a few more moves. That's why we have far advanced passed pawn, and because of these pawns we can create a passed pawn. So here it makes sense to sacrifice and activate your rook to promote your a pawn, while the knight is not doing much on h3. The next example, the next example I combined some positional play as well as tactical strikes. So first of all, let's look at this position. It seems to be approximately equal. What I don't like is that this pawn may potentially become a weakness, and the king is very close to the center. This knight is also in a kind of a problem because, for example, a random move e3 and the knight has to stay somewhere on the edge. If the knight goes, let's say, to f5, it's always under the attack. For example, that move and knight goes there, which is nothing. The knight is passive there. That's why black has to secure the knight's position as well as improve their pieces. So their rook is not doing much. It's not attacking a2, especially if the knight is on c3. That's why they considered this option, rook b8. Rook takes b8, knight takes b8, and white continued with a4. Why a4? Well, the c4 pawn is potentially the object of the attack, but at the same time this is a passed pawn, and the knight has to stay there to stop this pawn. while black is about to play knight b5 move. After the rook's exchange, this move is possible for black. The knight will be exchanged and the c pawn will move further. That's why a4 to stop knight to b3 or to b5, I mean. Black has no active plan, and then they follow another strategic principle of the endgame. They improve their king and move it closer to the center. White also exchange their passive pieces. The knight on h2 is not doing much, so it goes there. Black could move there to keep the knight more active, or they could exchange, which they did. This knight is bad, and with knight d7, black improved. The bishop is blocked, so the bishop should be activated, bishop e4, and later it can move to c2. King e8. f4. What is the idea of the f4 move? Black continued with king d8, and what do you think white should do here? So I want you to play positionally. By saying positionally, I mean that there are no tactical strikes. Right now there are no preconditions, but at least I want you to do three things. Improve your king's position, activate your pieces, and create weaknesses into the enemy camp. What would you do here? Well, block knight e5. With f4, you already blocked it. But I want you to suggest the next move. King f2. King f2 is possible move. At least it can be a part of your plan. White played another move, but king f2 is definitely a good move. Maybe there is no big difference whether to play king f2 now or do what white did and play king f2 later. a4. Well, by playing by saying a4, you mean this or that move? Stevie suggests f2, king f2 or h4. King f2, a5. King f2, okay, so a5. Well, a5 makes sense, but I don't want this pawn to become the object of the attack. Well, it cannot be attacked right now, but, well, knight b7 and it's captured. Maybe a5 is too early, but king f2 and h4 are the moves to consider. White played that. And if this, then it would be f5. Trying to exchange and make this pawn a weakness. For example, knight e5, f takes there, and this is still the object of the attack. The knight has to keep an eye on it. So one piece should be distracted. However, it's already in the center, which is good. Okay. In the game, it was king c7. The king comes closer. a5. Maybe kind of inaccuracy because of this move. Then king f2. Well, maybe bishop c2 seems to be a better move, but okay, king f2, and if knight takes there. The king is closer to the d4 square. This pawn cannot be captured right away. And for example, if this move, then you play that back, then what? King goes there, c4 is hanging. So white definitely gains the pawn on c4. Maybe black gains the pawn on a5, but well, with more space and with one side play, if you imagine these pawns are removed, it's one side play, and the knight is probably more dangerous. Moreover, the knight can go to g5 and attack both. That's why here black decided to not take on e4. They played knight b3, g4. king d5 and king d8 and h5. So why king d8? Why not to capture on a5? If this move was played, then white could continue with either h5 or f5. For example, f5, with the idea of take and then play this. Well, later you'll see how it happened in the game. g4, king d8, h5. If g takes h5, it's g5, and this pawn on h7 is lost. And the h5 becomes a weakness. That's why king comes closer. h6. Knight takes there, and f5, with the intention of taking there twice, even a bishop sacrifice works, and then promoting the pawn. So this is where white creates potentially a passed pawn on h6, and because of that, because this pawn is very close to the queen square, white may analyze tactical strikes. For example, f takes g6, f takes g6, and bishop takes g6. So let me illustrate it. I want to play some random move, f takes g6. If h takes, it's h7 immediately. If f takes g6, it's bishop g6. And if pawn takes, it's h7, the pawn is promoted. If king f8, it's bishop h7, and this is a distant passed pawn. Well, of course, black understands it, and nobody wants to blunder this simple tactical strike. That's why they move the king. Well, this time that line doesn't work because the king is very close. What white should do? White continues with g5. If black takes, that will be a weakness. And with the pawn on g5, we still have in mind this idea. And while the king would have to stay on f8 to prevent bishop g6 sacrifice. Knight b3. Now the white king comes closer. Knight c5, bishop c2. This time we keep an eye on g6, and we are ready to sacrifice only in case if the king goes to e8. That's why we'd better keep our bishop on c2 alive. Bishop c8. Now we have to solve this issue with the pawn being hanging. What would you do actually? What do you think? So what white should do? Should white take? Should white advance this pawn? Should white protect with the king? So there are three options. Which of them would you choose? Okay, king f4 was suggested by John. Two Johns suggested king f4. Okay. f6 was suggested by Stevie. King f4. Okay. So guys, you both think that this and that should be done. Well, king f4, but they play knight d7, and then what? So you want to play this move, then knight jumps to e5, and the knight now will be covering the g6. And with e4, you are not attacking g6 with your bishop also. So this is where you are not winning. Maybe you are not losing, but you are not winning. Okay. That's why instead it was f6 played, to keep the king trapped. For example, if they take, it's pawn takes, knight d7 and knight e4. Also, d6 is under attack and the king goes there while this king is trapped. So that's why after f6 they just played this. Bishop a4. Looks like a weird move, but well, the logic behind this move is obvious. They want to take. They also prevent their king moving to e8. Well, pawn takes, and black decided to exchange. g5. Knight comes to c3. This is where black could play bishop f5 and everything would be fine for them. But they made a mistake. They played g4 and got their bishop trapped. The game continued with king f2. Well, king f2 is required to stop the g-pawn. King e8. And now I want you to find a tactical strike that white delivered. It's very tricky idea, but that idea allowed white to win. Who can tell me? So everyone who joined us recently, we are talking about tactics in endgame, and I'm explaining that to be able to apply tactical strike in the endgame, there should be some preconditions. So here, for example, this precondition is that these pawns are weaknesses and the bishop on h3 is trapped. It has no legal moves. Okay, Stevie, we can check your suggestion a little bit later. So John suggests knight e4, then to g5. For example, king d7, then knight goes there, and then c3. To hold this pawn, you have to play this move. But then they play this. Yes, this. And if you capture, they promote. Oh, maybe they not. No, they promote. At least one pawn is promoted. However, well, you may say, why not to move the king there and after g3 just bring the knight back? c3 is hanging. Well, this is quite similar to what happened in the game. But what I don't like in this position is that, let's say g3, maybe king c3, it's bishop e2. And the knight has to keep an eye on the g-pawn, so knight h3 should be done always. But bishop g4 and neither knight h3 nor knight f3 can be played. So that's why this idea is too optimistic. We cannot stop both pawns simultaneously. But instead, we can play this move. Attacking here with a check. So they move the king, and we play e4. After this move, black realizes that actually they are in the Zugzwang. That was the tactical strike here. The bishop is trapped. If the bishop wasn't trapped, then of course no Zugzwang. But because of bishop being trapped and these two weaknesses, any move black plays loses the pawn. They played king d8, which was a huge mistake. Knight d6, c3, knight f7 check, king goes there, then knight e5, and then knight goes back to d3 to hold the c pawn. g3, king g3, c2, knight goes there, knight goes to c1 finally, but this position is winning, of course. So d6, bishop e6, king goes there, then the king comes to capture on c2. So there, and then with the knight, it captures on c2. Let me show you. For example, king a3, king goes there, which is already a mistake. Then one of these two pawns will be promoted. For example, this, take that, and the pawn is promoted. So the king has to stay there. And after this move, and then somehow knight attacks on c2, white successfully liquidates this pawn and gets back to the center to promote these three pawns in the center. Instead of that, instead of playing king d8 in this position, they could still save the game if they played this move, g3. King g3, bishop goes there, king comes to capture the pawn on c4, but black didn't understand that this pawn in game, despite that this is a pawn in game without a pawn, is absolutely drawing, because the white king is unable to reach the enemy camp. For example, a position, and if, for example, instead king goes to d4, king d7, e5, d takes e5, king e5, again, there is nothing that can allow white to progress. For example, if this move is king c6 and white has to lose the pawn, for example, this is how white can even lose. So playing d6 is a mistake. That's why the king has to retreat, so it cannot enter the king side. And then maybe this, but then it's still this move goes there, then this, or this move. I mean, the king should stay here or here. So black didn't realize that after g3, well, they realized they lose a pawn, the g3 and the c4, but they didn't understand that this endgame, a pawn in game without the pawn, is absolutely drawing. That's why they played king d8 and lost two pawns, after which the knight retreated to hold the pawn on the c file. So in this example, white combined the ideas of a positional play. For example, they were trying to create weaknesses and they successfully did them. It was h7 and f7 weaknesses. And finally, when these two weaknesses were formed and the bishop was stuck on the king side, they were able to apply a tactical strike with a Zugzwang, which allowed them to gain one pawn and then the second pawn. Now, well, I hope it's clear for you when to implement tactics in the endgame and when to play positionally. Now let's talk about the question that was asked by Stevie. For example, what if e5 here? Well, if e5 here, I think this pawn is hanging. They have to play knight b7, but if knight b7, then this pawn is vulnerable. King d2, king c3, and king c4 just. Because every time you play knight a5, d6 will be hanging. So let's check. King d2, king e8, king goes there. Yeah, knight a5, but they lose there. If they protect there, then the c4 is lost. No, this strategy won't work. Okay, guys, is everything, at least something clear for you today? We had three examples, and in all these three cases, in order to apply a tactical strike, tactical motive should appear. What also I want you to know, so here at Chesslands, we are going to conduct a masterclass next week. There will be a masterclass that will be a paid masterclass. However, it will be very cheap. That would be a masterclass by our coach, international master. Oh, this is the list of our coaches. By our coach Mauricio Arias Santana, and he will explain how to become a tactician, a master tactician. So how to improve your ability to find tactics in the game. That's why I kindly recommend you to visit it. Anyway, if you are subscribed to our announcements, I will send you an email where I'll explain what exactly he is going to cover. You can also, well, later you can also find it on our website. Well, this is a paid event. There will be 2 days and 2 hours each session. We are not going to publish it on somewhere else. It will be only available for those who enter the event. And maybe some short 5-10 minutes fragments will be published on YouTube just to promote the event. So, for example, that is his last masterclass about calculation. If you want to see how our masterclasses goes, you can just watch it. I'll send you the link. It is also published on this channel, on the chessworld.com YouTube channel. Anyway, let me send you the link. Maybe you decide to watch it. That was his masterclass about calculation. The next one will be about tactics, how to become a better tactical player. Do you have any questions, guys? Okay, looks like you do have a question. Let me answer it quickly. So here we are. So the question is, what if not king d7 but knight d7? Here, for example, knight b7 has to be played, then king d2 and bishop there. Well, it's interesting move. Then knight a3, and with king c3 you are able to capture the pawn. So for example, this move, then this move, and the pawn dies anyway. Okay, fine. So let's finish our mastermind for today. I'm sure you learned a lot, and hope to see you all guys next Saturday and Sunday on the masterclass of Mauricio Santana. Thank you for today.